Well, it's time for another blast from the past this 4th of July week. I was curious about what I talked about in July back in 2017, and it actually was episode number 24, which was an explanation of binary numbers. I mean, I guess that's what the 4th of July inspires in me, right? So I hope you're having a happy holiday week in the United States, and I will see you when we all return from all this holidaying.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
From the Security Weekly Vault, it's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. It's just me, little me, and all of you. So we get to sit here and we're going to talk about binary. Guess what? Coming up very soon, before you know it, Black Hat, July 26th to the 27th. Yow. If you miss it, well, you'll miss it. It's in Vegas, DEF CON, July 27th and to the 30th, so even longer. That's also in Las Vegas, so get out there and smell the, well, we won't get into that. Wild West Hackin' Fest is coming up in October, the 25th through the 28th. You know you want to go to Deadwood, South Dakota. You really do. I mean, I'm not even being sarcastic about that because it sounds like a really interesting place to go, and I've never been to South Dakota, so I got to find somebody to pay for me to go there. I'm working on it. Who knows? Or we'll take up a collection, crowdsource it, group fund it. I don't know. Or I'll just stand out on the street corner and go, need to get to South Dakota. People probably give you money for that. Domain Tools. Tonight, Tim Helming going to be a guest on Security Weekly, so tune in for that. From Domain Tools, whether they're phishing or hacking or spying, threat actors use domains and IP addresses to launch their attacks. And while you might not be interested in targeted attacks yet, targeted attacks are interested in you. Oh, yes. Your ability to map and characterize the attacker's infrastructure is crucial to defending yourself. Join Domain Tools senior security researcher Kyle Wilhoit and director of product management Tim Helming on virtual ride-along using Domain Tools Iris. They use real-world cases to show you how you can quickly and efficiently expose the adversary's infrastructure. Join their webinar at domaintools.com/securityweekly. Learn how to protect yourself against various crime, espionage, or hacktivism by seeing how investigators and threat hunters work in the trenches. Visit domaintools.com/securityweekly and see how you can recognize the staging area of the next attack. Sounds like a good idea to me. I would definitely check that out. We talked about that yesterday a little bit on Enterprise Security Weekly. Tim Helming's going to be on Security Weekly tonight. At 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so be sure and tune in and check that out live, because it's a lot more fun live, because you just never know what's going to happen on there. Sometimes they wear kilts, and, we all know what happens when people wear kilts. Today, we're going to talk about 0 and 1 are the loneliest numbers. I'm going to do a demo at the end of it, so we have a little bit of that. That's always easier to do, well, we won't get into that. So why do we do binary? I mean, this is the question that has plagued us since the dawn of time, actually the dawn of computing time, which is probably in the 19th century, so when Babbage was putting all this stuff together. But the reason we do it today is because a lot of stuff in computer systems is based on switches. And I don't mean network switches, but I mean actual switches like on-off type switches, true, false, that kind of stuff. And true, false, on-off fits very well into the model of binary. Pretty much everything at the processor level of the system runs it in binary anyway, so that you hear people talk about machine language and all this kind of stuff. That's really what they're getting down to. If you write code in Python, ultimately that code is translated through multiple steps down into binary language. But that's not why we're learning it. We're learning it because you need to know it. And one of the reasons you need to know it primarily is because of networking. If you want to learn how to understand, and we're leading up to that, so this is sort of this long, twisty road that's going to lead us, I hope, down to talking about network subnets. Why does it say 255, 255, 255? If you answer that question correctly right now, congratulations. Why does it say 255, 255, 224.0? Well, that's the question we really want to answer, but we have to have some background first. So we're going to talk a little bit about binary. Binary is basically base 0, or base 2, 0 and 1 type counting. And it's really simple because there's just a 0 and a 1. But all numerical systems, whatever they are, whether they're decimal numerical systems, like we count to 10 because we have 10 of these, I guess. There may be some other really strange reason, like, the god Enki came down and told us that we must count to 10. I don't know, the Sumerians, the Babylonians, I have no idea. I don't know anything about that. But the reason we use 2 in binary is because that's all we have. So anytime you want to use a symbol system to count, and you can make up your own if you want, but you can say 0, 1, 2, pineapple. And I don't know what that is, but it would be a really weird counting system. And so you put a pineapple every time you want that spot. Okay, fine. Binary, we just have 2 things. So we go 0, 1, 1, 0 equals 2. 1, 1 equals 3, and so on. Every time we need to go up, we add another bit. And almost everything that we do in binary for networking purposes and a lot of security stuff is based around 2 collections of bits, which is what these things are called. One of them is called a nibble, if you've never heard that term. And that's a less common term. The other term I know you've heard, but a nibble is 4 bits. So if you take 4 bits and put them together, it's called a nibble. And next week, we're going to talk about something really creepy called hexadecimal. And when we talk about hexadecimal, you have to understand nibbles. But nibbles are really easy because there's just 4 bits in there. The other one is 8 bits, which is called a byte. And I know mainframers, there's other stuff out there. But for now, we're going to stick with TCP/IP, which is all 8-bit binary. And in 8 bits, you have that total group of 2 nibbles. So they're usually written in nibbles. So you have 4 bits at a time, and they're written with a space between them. And we put that together. And that means that the smallest number we can represent in 8-bit binary is it's like Dora the Explorer. A 0, yes. Wow, you got it. You win. You win the prize for listening to that. What's the biggest number you can represent in 8-bit binary? I'll wait. I've got all day. Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you. It's 255. Dora never says that. She never just goes, oh. But she should more. But it's 255. So the number 255. So you can represent 256 things in 8-bit binary. And we want to figure out then really a question that we have before I do a demo. And I'm going to show you how to do all this. I'm just going to kind of talk you through it. One of the questions we have is, how do I convert binary numbers to decimal numbers, which are base 10 numbers, so the ones we know, and how do we convert base 10 numbers back to binary numbers? Okay, so there's a couple of things you have to learn, and you just literally will not be able to respect yourself. And I'm not even being sarcastic. I mean, really, I mean, how can you respect yourself if you can't do that? You need to learn to do this, please. Oh, I'm begging you. Memorize the powers of 2 up to 2 to the 7th. That's it. That's all you have to do. It's really not that hard. I mean, and wait, and you're gonna see it. Wait for it. You're gonna see numbers that you've seen all your life, and you go, why do they use that number? And it's like, now you're going to know. I mean, forever after. So you will win every bar bet about binary numbers. There won't be anybody asking you for these bar bets, but you can sit there by yourself alone and be smug. That's what I do. Just sit there in the bar like, I know binary. I can do it. So 2 to the 0, and I'm gonna do all this in the demo, so I'll show it to you on the screen because we're having it's a little difficult. I want one of those transparent things to put here in front of me so I can write on it. And it's like super cool, like Star Trek or something, you know. And they never do that in Star Wars, but I know the transparent boards I can write. They're going to build me one. They are. I'm telling you, you know who you are, and don't make me come out there. 2 to the 0 is 1. That's and the powers of 2 then just double. So they double all the way up through 7, so you can remember it for the rest of your life. Just 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. Ever seen those numbers before? Yeah. And there's a reason for that, because everything ends up being base 2. And so 2 to the 1st is 1, 2 to the 2nd, or 2 to the 1st is 2 to the 1st is 2, 2 to the 0 is 1, 2 to the 2nd is 4, 2 to the 3rd is 8, 2 to the 4th is 16. These are just exponents. So it's just the same stuff you did in, like, 4th grade math or 3rd grade math, or I don't know when they do that stuff in math. Today it's probably not covered till college or something, but regardless, that's how you do it. If you can memorize those numbers, you don't even really have to memorize them. If you can just remember, if you can just double them, 32, 64, 128. And you can keep going with that, too, if you want to do more bits, because to double 128, you get 256. Remember that number? 512, 1024, 2048. Yeah, I think 4096. You've seen those things, like memory sizes, hard drive sizes, all that stuff is base 2. And that's why it goes that way. So it's fairly important that you know those powers, because if you do that, you can do all this in your head. And there's all kinds of tricks and ways you can do this. You could go on the internet and you can Google things, and you can find calculators. You can buy calculators. I've had people in class ask me, can I use a calculator to do 8-bit binary? And I just go, No. But if you'll learn those powers, you'll be all set. And you can do all the numbers there. Now, binary numbers are written left to right, just like regular decimal numbers. And that's called Big Indian with an E, if you've never seen that. Big Indian. And I know, before you write me nasty letters and say it's offensive, it's not. It's E-N-D-I-A-N. And it comes from Gulliver's Travels. So Daniel Defoe wrote Gulliver's Travels, and there's a whole bunch of those books. I know everybody knows the one about the big giant Gulliver guy, but there's whole bunches of books about it, and it all came from there. And you can read about that if you want to on the internet. I don't have time to talk about all that. It's fun, but I don't have time to talk about it. So how do we convert these things from binary then? So all you have to do is, if you start on the right, and like I said, I'm going to do a demo of this in just a minute. I'm going to cut away to Doug, who's somewhere else in a distant land. But I'm going to cut away to Doug, and he's going to show you how to do it actually on the screen. But I'm just going to walk you through it. If you take each power and put it over the bit, starting from the right side of the 8 bits, so you start on bit 1 on the far right side, put 2 to the 0 above that, 2 to the 1, 2 to the 2nd, 2 to the 3rd, and on across. You can actually just add all those up. If it's a 1, add it in. If it's a 0, leave it out. And by doing that, you can convert any number in 8-bit binary to a decimal number pretty quick. And you can actually just do it in your head. Because, I mean, if you can just add these numbers together, and if you do this all the time, and you will in networking, you can add these things together really fast. You know, like 128 and 64 is 192. You've seen that number before too, right? 128 and 64 and 32 is 224. And all of a sudden, you start seeing all those numbers. If you add all of them together, guess what you get? 255. So what we're going to do at that point then is we're going to turn this over to the man, my man, Doug, who is elsewhere, and he's going to show you how to do this on the screen so that you can follow along and do your own binary calculations. And I'll be back at the end of that and talk to you one more time. Thanks, Doug. You're making me blush. Well, so now the cutaway is over here. It's not quite as witty as Family Guy, but we're here, and I want to show you how to do binary. Doug in the studio was talking about, you know, how that actually works and how important it is. I want to show you how to actually do binary conversions in both directions. It's not that hard as long as you're dealing with, say, 4 or 8 bits. If you start dealing with 32-bit words and 64-bit words, yeah, then you probably should use a calculator. But 8 bits is perfectly easy to do in your head. So let's just do a binary number first. So I'm going to put a binary number up here like this. So this is a binary number that could be any number at all, and we have 8 bits here in 2 nibble blocks. So there's two sets of 4 bits, and the big Indian is that we start on the left. This is the highest order bit, and this is on the right is the lowest order bit. So just like decimal numbers. So we do this the same way. So what we have to do in order to convert this number to a decimal number is pretty straightforward. For each power of 2, so the powers of 2 start on this side, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all we have to do is know those 7 powers of 2, and hopefully by now you had a chance to learn them while Doug was blathering on, thanks Doug, and taking up all the time in the show. So what we end up with here then is this bit right here is the 2 to the 7th bit. So we can say, and it's on, so it's a 1, so we can put 128. This bit is 2 to the 6th, it is turned off, so it's 0. The next bit is 2 to the 5th. It's turned on, 2 to the 5th is 32. And the next bit is turned off, it's a 0. And the next bit is right here, 2 to the 3rd, it's turned on, that's an 8. And the next bit is 2 to the 2nd, which is 4, and the next bit is turned off, and the next bit is turned off. If we add all those things together, what we end up with is 128 plus 32, which is 160, plus 8 is 168, plus 4 is 172. And that is how we can convert any binary number. I'm going to do one more for you just so you can see how it works. 1, 1, 0101. So I'm just making these numbers up. But you can practice this all you want just by making up numbers. There's all kinds of practice exercises online you can get if you want to learn how to do this. But again, for doing 4 and 8-bit, up to 8 bits, you ought to be able to do in your head. Same drill here. First bit is off, so 0 plus, or we could use some other weird symbol there. And next bit is off. The third bit here is 2 to the 5th, so that's 32. Plus, and the next bit is 2 to the 4th, which is 16. And then that next bit is turned off. And the next bit is 2 to the 2nd, which is 4. And the next bit is turned off. And the last bit is 2 to the 0, which is 1. And so if we add that together, we get 32 plus 16 is 48. Plus 4 is 52. Plus 1 is 53. So all you have to remember is those 7 powers of 2. If the bit is a 1, you put the value in. If the bit is a 0, you put in a 0 and add them all together, and you will get whatever decimal number that just happens to be. To convert these numbers the other way is a much more challenging ordeal. It's very hard to do that, but you can do it in your head. Now, again, if you go online, there's a whole pile of different methods that you'll find listed online showing you how to do this. There's where you divide it all out. There's some other approaches to it, and of course there's always a calculator. But to me, like I said, if you can live with yourself, you can use a calculator. Me, for 8-bit numbers, I can do them in my head, and I usually do. You'll also find, and this is the reason that I say this, you'll also find in practice that a lot of times when you need to do binary, you don't have an internet connection or a calculator with you. Maybe you do, and you got one on your phone. You can get apps or whatever, and then slowly we've added all these convenience tools. So if you are going to think you may need to do this, get an app or whatever. But it's so much easier to learn it in your head. So one other caution: I don't think Doug in the studio told you this. On a lot of exams, like CCNA, N+, all these types of certification tests, they will not allow you to use a calculator, and they will ask you to do these kind of things. So it's good to learn how to do this, and the more you practice it, the quicker you can do it. When I retake the CCNA exam to redo my cert, they have coverage of subnet masking, which requires you to be able to do binary. If you can do that in your head, you can beat everybody to the finish line every time. They use all these, Cisco will teach you how to do this with this thing. They use the magic number table, and that works. I can do it in my head faster than you can do it on your magic number table. But whatever works is fine. So just be sure on your certs or whatever, or wherever you think you'll need to be able to do this, you have a method that you can use in the environment that you need. And I have seen people do this. When I used to teach CCNA, when people were trying to do this in the training class I was teaching, a lot of times people come in and they would say, well, I don't know how to do this without my calculator. And it's like, well, you can't use a calculator on the CCNA exam. And they would say, well, what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, so they would have been so much better off if they'd been practicing this all along. It's not that hard. It's really simple math. It's the same numbers over and over and over again being added together. Practicing a little will get you perfect at it. So I'm going to teach you my method. It's also in the show notes, but I'm going to just make up a number here. I'm going to put 143 down. If we want to convert this number to binary, my method is pretty straightforward. Pick the largest number from the powers of 2. So 128 is the biggest number. Pick the largest number from the powers of 2 that will fit in this number. Okay? So in our case, and I'm going to write the number right at the top. If you need that number, turn that on. So I'm going to turn on the 128 bit. So this is 2 to the 7th. Take that away. So take 128, and what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the 128 from the 143 and see what is left. All right? So essentially, not very much. In this particular case, 143 minus 128 is going to be what? It's going to be 15 is all that's left. And I'll put a minus sign here just so you can see. And all that's left out of that is 15. So the next, I don't need 64. I don't need 32. I don't even need 16. So all those bits are turned off. I can, however, use 8. So now 8 is the biggest number that will fit. So I'm going to put 8 here, and I'll subtract again. I should try to make it nice and neat and cool looking because it's all professional. If I subtract there, I get 7. Well, the biggest number that will fit that remains is 4. So that's this bit. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a 4 in there, and I'm going to subtract that away, and I'm left with 3. This is a horrible number to do. 2 will fit in 3, so I'm going to put a 1 there, and I'm going to put a 2 down here, and I'll subtract that one out, and that leaves us with 1. And guess what? That last bit is turned on, so I'm going to subtract one more time, and I finally end up with 0. That tells me that 143 equals 10001111, and that's how you get that number converted in. I'm going to do one more of these just so you can see, and again, there's lots and lots of exercises online, but you can certainly practice yourself. Let's just pick a smaller number this time. I will pick, I don't know, I'm just going to pick one. I'll pick 35. So with 35, I start trying to put my bits together, and let's see here. So I know that I don't need 128, it won't fit. 64 won't fit, but 32 will fit. So I'm going to put 32 right here, and I'm going to again subtract. And when I subtract there, I get 3 back. So I know now that 16 won't fit, 8 won't fit, 4 won't fit, 2 will fit. So now I can put a 2 right here, subtract again, I get 1 back, and I'm going to put a 1 right there and subtract again, and I get 0 back. So 35 is 00100011. That's how you convert all those numbers backwards and forwards into binary. You really should fool around with this a little bit, because what I'm going to do in the next show, and I want to show you one last thing here before I let you go back to the studio for Doug to wrap it up. Nibbles are really easy. You can memorize any nibble pattern because there's only 4 bits there, and it's really useful to memorize the nibble pattern. So for instance, 1010, well, that is 8 plus 2 equals 10. It's one of my favorite binary numbers because 10 equals 10. See that? Isn't that cool? But it's 8 plus 2. The 8-bit, this is 2 to the 3rd, and the 2-bit, 2 to the 1st. 8 plus 2 equals 10. The biggest nibble is this one, which is, and like I say, you can memorize these. 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1 equals 15. It's the last number, the biggest number in nibbles that you can have. You can do any of these very easily, and pretty soon you'll memorize them. And the reason I want you to do this is because this is 8 plus 4 equals 12. These all relate to hexadecimal. So next week's show, I'm going to cover how to do the same stuff with hexadecimal numbers. So if you'll practice a little bit with nibbles and 8-bit bytes, you can actually learn to do this yourself. It's not hard. It's an incredibly useful skill in networking, and it becomes useful in cyber and other places because it will lead to you understanding 3 key things. IP addressing, which will be the show in 2 weeks, subnet masking, which will probably be 2 whole shows, and next week's show, which will be about hexadecimal. So whether you deal with hexadecimal error codes, or you deal with network addresses, or even better, here's one big topic that we will cover eventually, IPv6, 128-bit network addresses. We'll eventually talk about this on the show. And those are written in hexadecimal. And so if you don't understand hexadecimal numbers, you can't really understand IPv6 at all. But in order to understand how IP addresses work, which we're going to cover in 2 weeks, or how to understand subnet masks, one of the most misunderstood and misused things on the earth, that is the single most challenging topic in networking, literally. That is the topic that trips up more students and people on cert exams. And subnet masking, whether you think it's important or not, you will encounter it. You encounter it all the time. You will encounter it on cert tests, in a variety of forms, and you will definitely encounter it in real life where there are people who build difficult networks like myself, often use some variable link subnet masking. So I'm going to go let Doug wrap it up. I mean, you know, I know you like looking at him better than you like listening to me. So thanks, Doug, for letting me share this with you. All you guys out there, practice binary so you don't end up looking foolish the next time a bar bet about binary comes up. If you're old enough to consume or be in a bar, if you're not, you may get bets at other places. But learn it, live it, be it. Thanks, Doug. Back to you. Have a good one. Thank you, Doug. You are amazing. I mean, and did he look like he lost weight? I mean, I mean, I'm telling you, I was kind of turned on here. I mean, just, you know, it was like, wow. But hey, so Doug showed us how to actually do those calculations over there on the other side. And now we're back to sign off. So thank you. Next week, we're going to talk about hexadecimal. So be sure and tune in then. It will be on Tuesday next week. So be sure and be there. Thanks a lot. Bye.